What's up, everybody? This is your boy Glenn back with part two of the Bears offseason preview video. This time around, we're going to talk about free agency, how the team will look before free agency, who I think they should target in free agency, and if they went with my targets, how the roster would look. I will say that I kind of target only the um, the main targets in free agency, and I'm sure they will add supplemental pieces around them. But I'm just going to talk about some of the main pieces. Um, Last video was about 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep them at most to that length. Like I said, this will probably be a 4-ish part series. So, that being said, I'm going to turn off the camera and get right into it. Hope you guys enjoy. Okay. So, if the Bears followed my suggestions with their current potential group of free agents, this is how I think the roster would look pre free agency. Names in blue are guys they are bringing back who are their own free agents. Yellow are positions on the depth chart where I think they need to be addressed. If they listen exactly to me, they would get to 93 players. Obviously, 90-man roster is the goal heading into training camp. But, you know, I'm not going to be perfect. And who knows if we'd hit all these positions in one off season. I would say the odds are slim to none. So, with a quick look at our Bears roster before free agency, obviously we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starters on offense, 6 if you want to include a second tight end as a starter. Some teams run 2 tight end sets. I'm going to say 5 starters on offense, some depth clearly here. I'm going to say quarterback depth. Second string quarterback's got to be an important piece this offseason. Some offensive line depth would be great. As you can see, I don't think Khalil Herbert or Sam Mustipher justify being a bona fide number one at their position. I think we can upgrade from both of them. And that being said, with wide receiver, I think it's going to be tough to fill this position. But I think in a perfect world, you get a true number one here. And then maybe somebody later in the draft or something, a younger guy to fill in some depth. When looking at the defense, this is where it gets really scary. All 4 of the defensive line positions, I don't think we got a starter. I think Justin Jones, Dominique Robinson, and Travis Gibson can be some depth, but I don't think any of them. I don't think if you're a team that's trying to compete next year, obviously probably not for a Super Bowl, but for maybe a fringe playoff spot, I don't think you can have these guys starting for you. The linebackers position, I think Jack Sanborn has earned a shot to be a starter next year if and when he comes back healthy and motivated. The 2 other guys that I said bringing back from free agency, Matthew Adams and Joe Thomas, I think they'd be nice depth, but I think you need 2 new linebackers next to Jack Sanborn. Probably one being a little more of a stud than the other, as a lot of times teams play 3 cornerbacks, with the slot corner and nickel. You'll also see I got Jalen Johnson here. This is my way of saying I don't think he's the number 1 corner. I think he's a nice number 2. I also think Kyler Gordon is either a slot corner or some depth at this point in his career. Just don't think he has what we're looking for to be the number 2, and I don't think Jalen Johnson has proven that he's a number 1. Eddie Jackson is gone, so we're going to have to fill in that position as well. But I think Jaquan Brisker is also a legitimate starter next year. Special teams, I think you got to bring some competition in for Santos. He's been a little shaky this year. I've loved him in the couple years prior. I think you at least got to think about maybe getting some competition in for the guy. That being said, this is how the roster looks. It is bleak. But I'm going to show you how with some money spent in free agency, this roster can turn around and be somewhat competitive relatively quick. So when we go to the next tab, this is who I would target in free agency. All of these years and figures are from a website. I want to say it was Spotrac or something like that. Their suggested values. That's how I went off it. If you disagree with the numbers or the length of these contracts, I apologize, but that's what I went off of. So, in no particular order, it looks like I got the defense listed first. I think you bring Arden Key in as a potential edge rusher. Deron Payne, I love from the Commanders. I think that he would be a nice piece at the three technique. I think he brings legitimate pass rushing ability from the interior of the defensive line. I have no problem paying that man some money. Devin Bush and Raekwon McMillan, I think, are some options to bring in with a little more oomph than Matthew Adams and Joe Thomas that I think would potentially fill in the linebacking spots next to Jack Sanborn a little bit better. Devin Bush is still very young. He's like super young, like 24, 25. I actually wouldn't mind paying him for a couple extra years. He's a little more athletic. Playing for Pittsburgh, out of Michigan. I like the kid a lot. I actually would not mind bringing him for 2-3 year contract for sure. Jesse Bates, the third, is going to be the other splash signing on the defensive side of the ball. I think he comes in, he's still young, fills in that free safety spot next to Jaquan Brisker, and really solidifies the back end of our secondary. Ethan Posich and Isaac from the Eagles. Posich, obviously, I believe from the Cleveland Browns. Two legitimate stud linemen. I think Isaac's for sure Pro Bowler this year. Granted, some of it might be team success. I think Posich has been a couple-year Pro Bowler. I think you bring those two guys in, and you really, if Tevin Jenkins comes back, you're really talking about something special there on the interior of the offensive line. We're talking about if you make all 7 of those signings, obviously, like I said earlier, they're probably going to make a few more signings, some less splash players. But we're talking about somewhere between 50 and 60 million here probably being spent. If we got 155 million pre-free agency, we're talking about still having somewhere near 100 post-free agency. I think you sign those guys, and we look at this roster after free agency, and we're starting to see it come together a little bit. Definitely still need some depth, but we're starting to see a little bit of a picture come together, as we're speaking. We now look at the offense, and yes, we still need a stud running back. It'd be great to get a splash at wide receiver and a right tackle, which Larry Borom could be serviceable, but I'd like to maybe shore this position up and keep Borom as a swing tackle in the backup as a backup. I mean, if we shore up this right tackle spot and these guys stay healthy, we're talking about a top 5 offensive line, no doubt. Still need some depth. But we're seeing some stuff come together here. It's got me excited. We look at this defense. This is the biggest hole to me. Obviously, you got to fill these in. This is still a big hole. I think really good defenses have a stud cornerback number 1. I'd like to find a way to make that happen. We're talking about a good safety tandem here. These are good cornerback 2, good cornerback 3/slot. Some solid linebackers. Really like this Jack Sanborn kid. He showed me a lot pre-injury. Showed me a lot. Undrafted guy. I don't care. He's a stud. Maybe get some youth here next to these two guys. Maybe a little young, big nose tackle type, big type next to Deron Payne. Stud defensive end. Is this our Will Anderson spot if we stay put? Who knows? But I think you guys can see that if we spend some money that we have this free agency, some stuff could start coming together. Really can. All right, we're at the 10-minute mark. I think in the next video, I'm going to come back with a little bit of a game plan for the draft and maybe do a live draft with you. I like the idea of it. That's what I'm thinking. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to call this second video here, this part 2 of the Bears 2023 offseason. We're going to call it here. We're going to call it after signing 2 stud interior offensive linemen. We're going to stop it after signing Daron Payne. After bringing Jesse Bates in to a spot that's been occupied and held down by Eddie Jackson, we're going to just bring in another stud safety. Thank you, Eddie Jackson, for all you've have done. We love you, the Chicago Bear. We need some more confidence in a player's health. I just think Jesse Bates might be the better move. I don't know how you look at this and not start getting a little excited as a Bears fan. I sure am. All right, we're going to come back next video with a little game plan for the draft. And I'm going to hop into a draft simulator and do a live draft with you boys. I think you're going to enjoy it. If you're new here, like and subscribe. Drop a comment. I appreciate you coming through. Hope you're enjoying your day, your night, wherever you may be. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Anyways, that's part 2 of the Bears offseason video series presented by Glenn. We'll be back with part 3 in no time. Till then, I love you. Peace.